certain way, and I am not in favor of legalizing any type of marijuana, any type of drug consumption. I understand the purpose for medical purposes, but it's not, my opinion is that it's not a good thing, and I would hate to see it being a burden on resources within the township.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, David Hayner.
Thank you for having me. As you know, my name is David Hayner. Most of you know how much I care about this community and the people in it, and how active I am in the community. The Hayners have been active in Huron Township for close to 100 years now, and it would be a pleasure to continue the family's tradition of service by offering my service to this team in solving the problems that we as a community face. I hope that you can use my close to 24 years of business and technology experience to better serve the residents by looking at things from a different perspective. My job for most of my career has been problem solving. Not just people's immediate problems, but many times the problems that they have yet to identify. This happens by meeting and listening with the clients, finding out what their wants, identifying their needs and goals, and helping them implement strategies for success. I know you have many wonderful candidates to choose from, and it's an honor to be here with people that want to make this township a great place to live. I'd like to thank you for your careful consideration. You guys have my resume, and I was wondering if there's any questions.
We'll go to the general question that everybody's being asked to answer about are you in favor of the ballot initiative in November to legalize not medical but recreational marijuana?
Well, as you know, my mom died of breast cancer.
We're talking recreational, not medical.
No, I know. So I actually have studied this a lot more than probably most. When it comes to communities that have done this, like Oregon and Colorado, the incidence of addiction to other drugs has declined. Marijuana is actually less addictive than alcohol. The amount of revenue that's generated from recreational marijuana in Colorado and Oregon has been substantial and has helped many a community. I'm trying to think, there's a couple other interesting little tidbits. Are there downfalls? Yes. Some people might think that this is permissible, but in Oregon, they found that teen use has dropped because it's harder to get. So as compared to other drugs and its effect on lowering other drug use, I think it's a benefit to our state and our community because it would bring needed revenue inside.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Right.
Mr. Iridenko.
Thank you for this opportunity. You have to bear with me a little bit. I had some surgery done on my spine today, so I'm not walking quite steady. It's not due to alcohol or recreational drugs.
So you had treatments on your spine and you're here tonight?
Right.
Okay.
That's how dedicated.
Yeah,
That's how dedicated I am for this position. Yeah,
You two be ready over here. Okay? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Paul.
Most of you know me, and for the ones that don't know me, my name is Wally Iridenko. I've been, my wife and I have been Huron Township residents for 40 plus years. Her family's been here in Huron Township for well over 100 years, so we're pretty well established in Huron Township. I owned property here before we decided to start building and raising our family here. Our kids went through the Huron Township school system. My wife and I just celebrated 52 years of wonderful bliss marriage. We have a business that we started substantially years ago called Mom's the Word. Our business is now what we call MEEP certified through the state of Michigan. For the people that don't know what that is, that's the Michigan Agriculture Environmental Assurance Program. And the meaning behind that is that our farm is environmentally verified to be environmental. We do everything by code, what the state dedicates to be proper as far as handling any kind of waste, any type of chemicals, any type of fuels or anything like that. So we do that with a great amount of expertise. Also with the state of Michigan, I have a private pesticide applicator card, and that's with the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. So we pay a lot of attention to what's going on, not only our business, but other businesses in Huron Township to try to make sure that our environment here is going to be as best as it can be. So keep the pollution out. And with that designation, I also am a member of the Monroe County and Western Wayne County Agriculture Council. In that council, we were approached by Monroe County College, and believe it or not, as big as that county is, they did not have an agricultural program put together for the students. So what we did as an ag council, we got with Monroe College and MSU, and it took a while, but we eventually was able to put a program together, recognized, so that the kids in Monroe County, they can go and take a ag program for a 2-year program, get that degree, transfer those credits to MSU, and go on and get into a 4-year degree, so that when they come back, they can either work on the farms or making sure that our environment is safe for our children to be able to grow up into. Also in the past, some of the things I did besides what was in my resume, I also am a former president of the 2-term president of the Huron Township Rotary, former member of the Historical Society, and anybody that has ever gone in town to the one-room schoolhouse in there and seen that little pot-belly stove there, as a member of the Historical Society, that was brought to my house, and I spent a considerable amount of time rebuilding that so that kids go down there, they can kind of see what history looked like as far as people cooking food and heating their homes with. My wife and I, along with a good friend of ours, we decorate the township at Apple Fest, Christmas time. We put a lot of time and effort into that. A lot of expense comes out of our own pocket that we don't even pass on. But that's because we like to do that to make the township look as presentable and as nice as possible. We get more and more compliments about that. I'm also a member on the DDA and the Planning Commission. Matter of fact, I'm co-chair on the Planning Commission. That's been since 2009, 2010. Being on those 2 boards, more so on the planning, there are contractors that come to the township that want to build or do something that I, at least anyway, make sure that I go through a lot of my references that I have at home, my MTA book, my master plans for different parts of construction to make sure that they're in line with that, along with the Planning Commission, and go along with the the zoning ordinances to make sure they're in compliance with all of that. Through the DDA, we were able to put together a program, and it was passed now as a resolution for the township. If businesses want to either redecorate their current business, or if another business comes in, we have a set of standards there that they have to be in compliance with. That happened with the Dollar General that came in. We had it in our mind what we wanted, but we didn't have it on paper, so we made sure that we got it on paper so that any businesses coming into the future have to abide by that, so that when we have companies or businesses coming in, it's not going to be just whatever they want. They're going to have to be in compliance, so it's proper and fitting for our township. Other than that, if anybody has any questions.
Any questions of the board? Well, you're the most qualified person in the room to grow marijuana.
However, believe it or
Same question to you.
believe it or not,
The other.
it's surprising that you're asking that question, because I asked that very same question back in 2009 when I first got on the Planning Commission. If you check back in the records, which would be pretty tedious to do, but one of the very first things I asked when I got on the Planning Commission was, what type of ordinances do we have in place so we don't have this happen in our township? We need to have something established now. So down the line, this will happen. This will come. I've seen it in industry. I've seen crane operators smoking joints and carrying 50,000-ton coils of steel, over people's heads. Scary as hell. I've seen ILO drivers doing the same thing. I've seen fatalities because of that. And that's something I didn't want this township to be associated with. I, over and over and over, kept saying we need to get something on the books. And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't seem to get people motivated or interested enough at that time, because that was something they didn't see when they opened the door. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't out there. And now that it's here, it's more concerning, and now people are getting more interested in getting something on the books. Hopefully it's not too late, but I would definitely hate to see something like that come into our community. I'd be totally against it.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Danko. Donovan Dreisen.
Good evening, board members, chiefs. Thank you for seeing me tonight. My name's Donna Mendraza. I've been a resident of this township for over 50 years. My husband and I have raised our family here, and now I have grandchildren being raised here. I graduated from Huron High School and went on to achieve my bachelor's in business management, and also had the opportunity to work for the automotive company for over 20 years. I was retired now, a senior global manager responsible for 150 people and a multi-million-dollar budget. And as other people have said tonight, my father was always very active in this township, and I was raised to give back to the community you live in. So I have always been involved in activities, PTA, 4-H, all of that when I was in the schools with my children. And since then, I have also had the opportunity to serve 18 years on our Huron School District Board of Education, 8 years as a township trustee, 4 years on LDFA, and 20 years on the Planning Commission. I've seen a lot of development, and we're talking about development that's coming, and some of you that may not remember things like Space World, toxic waste dumps, a lot of things that came before this township many years ago. Not all development is positive. So my reason for being here and wanting to be a part of this is I want to make sure the growth and the development that we have in this township stays positive. There's been a lot of things that come forward that have had very negative aspects on our schools. So I think it's important that when things come here, we have to look and see how it affects them. So just a huge development, which may bring in 2,000 homes, may be sold as, well, this is great for the community and the schools will love it, but they may not have room for it, and therefore it's really not the best for our, community. So with that, I would just like the opportunity to continue to serve the residents and work to improve Huron Township. And to answer the question I know is coming, no, I'm not in favor of it. This very board, in the last several years, had turned down grow facilities because we were afraid of how it would impact our public safety. I personally think medical is totally separate. There's reason in place for that, but I am not in favor of legalization for recreational use.
Any other questions on Ms. Madraza? Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Clerk Katie, have a statement from Ms. Myshak?
Yes, sir. I guess rather than go over her resume also that I think everybody has, I'll just read the brief email. So again, she's unable to attend tonight because she was unable to get out of her scheduled workday. She couldn't get relief. So she starts with saying, I would like to thank the Board of Trustees for the opportunity to apply to fill the position of trustee for the remainder of this year. I apologize that I am unable to be here in person. I have had prior work engagement and I am unable to get relieved. My resume has been submitted and circulated to you all, so I will not repeat those facts. However, I would like to give a personal statement. While I have only been in this township just over a decade, I call it home and I intend to remain here for years to come. Currently, I serve as the chair of the Historical Commission as well as the recording secretary and the Huron Township representative of the Romulus Library Board. I'm active in our community. I support our local businesses and our organizations as well as our schools. I attend most township board meetings. Recently, I've been working to strengthen our community bonds through collaborative efforts with other community organizations such as Rotary and the Parks and Recreation Commission. I want to see our township prosper and have a viable downtown area that welcomes our residents and those visiting us. I believe that while it would only be short-term, I will be of value to our township as a representative to the people and a supporter of the good work the board has done thus far. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Candace Myshak.
Very good.
And I do not have an answer to the question.
All right.
I move that this board appoint Ms. Chris Gamber to fill the 6-month position of trustee, after which she would step down and the residents would decide on who they would want to fill the remaining final 2 years by their vote.
Just a point of clarification, it wouldn't be a step down, it would be an expiration of the term because a newly elected would take over.
And again, just to be clear, this is a temporary appointment
Yes.
Until the next regular
Sure.
election can take place.
This term will expire midnight on November 20th.
And then we have people who have expressed an interest in running in that election and have filed. So this, again, is just a temporary appointment to the election.
Sure. There are 2 candidates that have filed for election.
So we got a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Roll call, sir.
Go ahead.
Katie, yes. Supervisor Glade?
Yes.
Shant?
Yes.
Patterson?
Yes.
Trustee Glade?
Yes.
Lazier?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you for all of you who came forward and presented yourselves. I think we can all agree had a very good stable of candidates, and we welcome Christine Gamber McClellan to the board. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
We'll limit the meeting to brief public comments. Anybody wishing to come forward, please do. Seeing none, we'll move on. Chief, anything else this evening?
Just briefly want to give our stats for the month of April. We responded as the police department to 242 calls for service, 222 reports generated, 22 accidents, 102 arrests, 1 larceny from auto, and 4 B&Es. For the fire department side for April of 2018, the fire department responded to 141 calls for service, 103 EMS, and 38 fire. Their average response time was 8.93 minutes. For Huron Valley Ambulance for April of 2018, they had 91 calls for service with an average response time of 12.28 minutes. Just briefly, I want to talk about, and I think I mentioned this last month as well, but I've been getting a lot of calls, especially from our seniors, about phone scams that are going on, something that I think they should be cognizant of. We had something on our Facebook and a Nixle alert yesterday. There are several different scams that are going on. Most of them are being tracked to overseas. They're coming from spoofed phone numbers, something that we can't trace. But something I want to tell anybody that's watching this or any of our senior citizens is do not give your personal information out. There's a reason that they continue to do this because some people must be. So that's something that the IRS will never ask you for your personal information over the phone. The most recent one is people calling, telling a spouse that her husband or wife has been either seriously hurt or killed in a car accident and that they need to send money right away for their medical care. And again, that would never happen. So if you have any questions, always call the police department, ask us about, especially if it's here, and we'll do our best to research that. We do get a lot of calls. There's not a lot of follow-up that we can do as far as tracking these people down. Most of them are, as you can probably tell on the phone call, aren't from the United States. So just want to tell people to be aware of that. That's all I have.
Moving into Board of Trustee comments. Treasurer Lazier.
Yes. I'd like to thank all of the candidates tonight that came out, took time and came out to address the board. Each and every one of you would be a great asset to this board. You know, unfortunately, we only could choose one, but we do have an election coming up, and in 2 years, we have another one coming up. So I hope all of you put your hats in the ring and run. Like again, I said again, each and every one of you would bring something great to this board. Also, on April 27th, which was Arbor Day, the Parks and Rec, along with DTE, Michigan Relief, the Rotary, and Renton Junior High students, planted 18 trees at Lake Park. This was over $1,000 worth of trees that were donated to that park, which needed some kind of shade, especially over by the ball diamonds. And also, I'd like to give a special thank you to Iron Mike's, who provided all of us with lunch that day. It was very, very good. It was a wonderful lunch. So thank you.
Yes, sir. I just kind of to echo on what Director Robbins said. So I just want to let everybody know, if you get an email what appears to look like coming from, and I only speak to the township side, from a township email account and at hurontownship-mi.gov. There was concerns that our emails were infected. They are not. It's what's called spoofing, like the director spoke about. So the important thing that you can look at when you get these emails, before you click on any attachments, click to see what email address it came from. Even though it might say, for example, it's from Jeremy Cady, look at the email address next to it, because odds are, if it don't look like a type of email you'd get from the person whose name is on it, check that email, because it's probably not their email, and just delete it. I'm going to give a type thing for Director Robbins to put out to the community that's much more in depth, like how to protect yourself from it. But there is people, the city of Romulus is getting emails from board members about a fake invoice. And if they click the attachment, it infects their computer and gives access to places that people shouldn't have. So, but a lot of people just see who it's from, the name, and say, oh, it's from someone I know, and then they click it, but they don't actually look at the, you know, where's it coming from at whatever.com. That's very important. The supervisor had somebody spoof his email, and it appeared to come from David Glabe, but it actually came from like avanafreshmarket.com or something like that. So luckily the person who received it seen that and called, and we got it taken care of. But just be mindful of it, because for whatever reason, Huron Township's really getting targeted hard with scamming efforts. So be mindful.
Mr. Shaw.
Follow up on what Jeremy just said. I've gotten 2 emails from this guy saying I owe him money.
Well, you do.
I take personal checks.
Probably pay that.
Any other members? Before we entertain a motion to adjourn, we had an opportunity to initially touch on this ballot initiative in November. This board, what I intend to do is, as I have in the past, I brought in speakers from Michigan State Police. You might remember Mary Kapp, who was involved with downriver Drano and the drug abuse problems downriver, that we have teams of communities, their police officers team together to help eradicate. She presented to us a few years back. She's now retired, but she has a successor, and I sent all of you emails this week about presentations that I attended with the Downriver Community Conference through the DEA and other credible sources presenting information on this ballot initiative. And I had the honor of attending a DEA civilian academy where a lot of things were covered about what the Drug Enforcement Agency covers, but in part how they deal with illicit drug trafficking throughout the country. And the information they presented the other night, it just, to me, it's frightening as a person involved in local government. And I think every one of you on this board need to be attentive to this issue come November. There's a lot of misinformation out there. One of the things the DEA presented was this, the Colorado experiment. What's happening in Colorado is not living up to what was promised. They're having big-time problems out there. It's not the same as alcohol. It's not controlled the same. In fact, if you ask the chief or anybody in law enforcement, there isn't the equivalent type of objective standard that you could ask a forklift operator or someone who's driving there. It's not as easy to determine if someone's driving drugged as it is driving under the influence of alcohol. So that's a problem not having an objective standard. The other thing people need to be aware of is the marijuana today is not what maybe you're used to have been known in the 70s or 80s. The THC levels today are many, many times what they used to be. So it's far more dangerous. And what they're finding is, especially with the edible products, a lot of minor kids are being rushed to the hospital. Drug use and marijuana use in those states where it's legalized is actually going up. So all the problems associated with the wrong people using the wrong products is happening in these communities. So the hype about taxes and revenues is being dwarfed by the truth, and that is these communities are actually spending a lot more money than they're taking in to curb the problems of drug abuse. The black market has not gone away. Just because they legalize in these communities, they still have a black market. In fact, the black market is thriving because what the cartels are actually involved in a lot of these states in promoting the legalization, because what they do is they run both a legitimate and illegitimate operation, one out the front door, one out the back door. And if Michigan becomes the next state of 9 to legalize it, it becomes another stepping stone from those who operate in the black market to traffic and to supply other neighboring states, particularly on the East Coast. Where in New York, the cost is 4 times the amount that is in Colorado because Colorado has legalized. So what I'm going to encourage all of our board members and the general public to do is seek out credible information about really what's happening. Because it's going to affect our police department in a big way. It's going to affect our schools. It's going to affect our community. So one of the comments that I heard earlier about regulation and our ability to control that business like others, you would think we'd have that ability. But this law, if passed in its present form, will actually take away our right of local control. If we were wanting to restrict or regulate these type of operations, it would actually take a ballot initiative. Someone in our community would have to initiate a ballot initiative, get 5% signatures of those who voted in the last election, and put it on a ballot. It can't be a special ballot. It have to be on the next regular ballot. So it takes away a lot of this board's local control to regulate these type of establishments should they become legal. So again, I want to encourage everybody to kind of bone up on this. I will try to present as much information as I can to you, but I'm disturbed by it. I think it could very negatively impact our community if our state chooses to go in that direction.
Speaking of that, how will that work if it does pass? How is that going to work for, like, when you send someone down for, like, a drug screen and say they test positive?
Well, I tell you, it's a very thorny issue, and one of the things, outside of some of these discussions, when you talk to business people, one of the tough things employers are having is actually people being able to pass a drug test. Mm-hmm. And this is not going to help matters. And it's not going to help the guy working next to the forklift operator, as described. But all I do is encourage, everybody to kind of seek out their own independent information and think about it, because I can't think of another issue that's really impacted our local community, what's going to affect us as a board more than this. I just can't remember anything in recent history. So that's simply my point I'd like to make tonight. So with that, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So move.
Sir, Supervisor, could you address the senior bus issue?
Sure, yeah, thanks for bringing that up. We're still reviewing the purchase of a bus for the seniors. We were actually going to consider it this evening. We actually have to wait a little bit for the funding to come through Wayne County. We're a little premature on that. But we are making arrangements to secure appropriate transportation for the seniors. So it's not a matter of if, it's just when at this point. So we had a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Everybody have a good evening.